Mike Zeroh one can't handle the truth.
You're a cheat and a swindler. That's what you are. How can you do a thing like this?
I am authorized to assure you these rumors are based on hysteria and are absolutely false. I repeat, these rumors are absolutely false.
Welcome back, and thank you for joining me once again as I take another look into the relentless lies of Mike Zeroh. For far too many years, Zeroh has been dumping his toxic bile into the mainstream we call media. There may have been one or two exceptions to the rule, but generally everyone he talks about is female, and all have seemed to have succumbed to the same fate within the realms of their chosen profession. If you haven't learnt by now, Zeroh talks in ever-decreasing circles, painting himself into a corner, and eventually having to get himself out. Once that has transpired, it's time to start the whole process all over again. And what is that process? Well, this is what I will do my best to explain in today's video. So let's start with the setting. This is mainly a studio, be it TV or film. Then we have to have someone who has upset the equilibrium in some way, be it on set or in public. This then leads to some form of entanglement with those in power, which leads to said person being fired from other projects, which have never been mentioned up until this point. The person with the grievance then goes on to make more stupid comments directed toward the general public, or to be more concise, the fans. And this has been going on every day for 15 years. That's right, 15 years. For 15 years Zeroh has been making up his own version of events that cannot be verified in any other way other than what Zeroh tells you, and everyone believes it. As an example, I would like to draw your attention to a story concerning Gal Gadot. Now, whilst Gal's story doesn't contain most of what I have pointed out, it's still relevant to how this all works. First, make up a story, keep running with the story, until something comes along to contradict your story or jump to something else that's more profitable, and needs to take precedence over what you're already running with. For around 3 years, Zeroh let it be known that a fourth trilogy was in the process of being put together. Talks were underway to get Keanu Reeves and Jennifer Connelly on board, as well as Gal Gadot.
Now, it's noted that they aim to make Gal Gadot's character as the Sith Princess of Exegol in the new Star Wars trilogy of movies. This is Disney's aim to create parallels of the past films. The Sith King of Exegol is still set to be portrayed by actor Keanu Reeves in the new Star Wars trilogy of movies. Now, the Sith Princess of Exegol, portrayed by Gal Gadot, is set to be a big part of the story in the new Star Wars film, and that Gal's character is going to be introduced in the comics and books next year in 2021 for starters. Now, the new trilogy is set to actually explore a brand new family associated with the dark side. The Sith King, the Sith Princess, the Sith Prince, and the Sith Queen. All 4 new characters to be used on the world of Exegol in this new Star Wars universe.
That came from a clip that was uploaded by Zeroh on the 9th of September 2020. There were many other videos that kept on about the same thing. Reeves was in talks, as was Gadot and Connelly, but that was as far as it was getting. There was also an additional character added, but was never spoken about again, and that was the Sith Prince. So I want to now move another year forward, plus an additional 20 days to September the 29th, 2021.
But they are on the side planning a new Star Wars trilogy, the 4th Star Wars trilogy as they are calling it right now, that is going to be fully announced at Star Wars Celebration of 2022, so keep your calendars marked for that general time. However, Disney is already getting ready to announce the 4th Star Wars trilogy at Star Wars Celebration next year that is set to feature actor Keanu Reeves, who has already been in multiple conversations with Bob Chapek. Now, the 4th trilogy is not to be mistaken as episode 10, 11, and 12, but rather its own new thing set in a brand new era. Keanu Reeves is set to portray the Sith King of Exegol that goes by the name of course, King Valar. Now, the plan for this new character is to make him a character that uses the essence transfer technique and how he was able to jump from body to body that will actually be explained in the story. Now, currently Disney is focusing on telling the story of King Valar in greater depth in a new book that is set to drop by the end of 2022 that will tie into the movies.
That clip was kinda the same but different, as there was less information in that video than there was in the one from a year before. However, the book about the king and the rest of the royal family had now been moved to the end of 2022, as opposed to coming sometime in 2021. And to this day there have been no book releases that I know of, or any announcements made at any Disney or Lucasfilm event about this fourth trilogy that revolves around the Sith royal family. This continued for months on end, interspersed with other stories surrounding more new single films and more new trilogies. This included 3 movies from Kathleen Kennedy, another set of films identified by the numbers 10, 11 and 12, and also in this barrage of movie information there was also going to be a trilogy by George Lucas himself. Of course, we still had news about the ongoing power struggles within Disney and Lucasfilm, and how John, Dave and George were making Star Wars great again for fans all around the world. But then something happened, a change was on the horizon as bad news started to become apparent in relation to Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. As this intensified, Zeroh positioned himself onto this franchise whilst still holding onto his already well-established nonsense surrounding the Star Wars IP. Then 2 months before the release of Indy 5, we had Star Wars Celebration hosted in London, during which we got a rundown of movies that were coming in the not-too-distant future, none of which were ever mentioned by Zeroh. With his numbers waning with Star Wars and getting a newfound interest thanks to Indy 5, Zeroh jumped ship and was no longer a channel for future Star Wars updates, but now a channel that just did updates right across the board, thus not tying him to one franchise anymore, and free to grift where the money would be more forthcoming. Brie Larson and Kathleen Kennedy news seemed to halt after years of berating them, if only for the reason that he could seemingly empathize with his viewers, show them he was on their side when it came to hating these 2 people in particular. Then a woman that he had no interest in at all prior to her being shoved into a meat grinder by fans of Indy 5, Phoebe Waller-Bridge became the new Brie Larson in the eyes of Zeroh. Well, that was until Rachel Zegler made her grand entrance some months later.
Another film that was axed by Iger and the board involved a plan for a film that would center on an origin of the world of Exegol and the Sith royal families, set in between the Old Republic and the High Republic era. Also a singular film that was intended to release in theaters. This was going to be created by J.D. Dillard. This was finalized and cancelled just recently as well, behind the scenes by Bob Iger. All what remains right now are 3 movies: the Rey movie, Dawn of the Jedi, and Filoni's movie, and Dawn of the Jedi is even facing a cancellation, as James Mangold is in the hot seat after what happened with Indy 5, given that he wrote that film and directed it.
On August the 28th, 2023, 3 years after it started and 4 months after it was never revealed or unveiled alongside the 3 films that were announced for real at Celebrations London, Zeroh pulled the Bob Iger is cancelling card on the film about the Sith royal family. This wasn't the first time and it hasn't and won't be the last. He has already cut 3 fake movies that were affiliated to the Snow White remake movie for 2024 and has replaced them with films about witches, spy thrillers, and a multitude of other reboots. He has the likes of Zegler, Hurd and Ortega infighting either with others or themselves, just to keep his clickbait news relevant, even though they're just repurposed stories to begin with. And before I bring this video to a close, I'd like to share a couple of examples of Zeroh reappropriating news he has used before, and this would only be the tip of a rather large iceberg.
We know that Gal's connection to Disney is already destroyed, and the fact that she was going to land a couple of roles in the Star Wars franchise specifically within one show is not all that surprising. We know that Leslie Headland is trying to obtain a couple of A-list actors, or even B-list actors, to make appearances in the Acolyte series. This was a full-on decision that was proposed by Kathleen Kennedy to the Disney higher-ups that was quickly accepted by Disney, as Dave Filoni has been receiving more deals with Kathy to obtain more Star Wars projects, essentially. While Favreau was getting slowly phased out, not only this, but Favreau was also removed as a co-writer for Dave Filoni's Star Wars movie. He was initially promised by Kathy and the higher-ups at Disney to get that position to help write the movie. That is now no longer on the table, and he will not be allowed to visit the sets either. He has been banished from the sets of that film and at least 3 Star Wars TV shows in general that will now be led by Dave Filoni. One shocking development is that Amber Heard had many privileges and clearances with the Pirates of the Caribbean reboot production that transitioned from previous plans for Pirates 6, which was supposed to star Johnny Depp. where Disney recently banished her from the sets and privileges for the Pirates of the Caribbean reboot movies.
As tenuous as those clips may be, I'm only using them as a way of pointing out how Zeroh will continue to graft a story onto someone else, a topic I have covered in previous videos. First, we had a role given to Gal, a spot in the Acolyte TV show, a position that was originally given to Brie Larson. And then we have a story about Favreau being banned from sets, the same way Amber Heard has. Frankly, I can't see why Amber Heard would even want to visit the set in the first place, but I can't also work out why someone would want to make people think she does. Ultimately, it's about money and keeping people angry and coming back for more scenarios that aren't real, and until I see otherwise I will keep pointing out these inconsistencies in Zeroh's so-called facts. I want to finish by thanking those who are new subscribers to the channel, for the comments and support, and of course those who have also been with me since this all started. Thank you all so much. Well, that's all I have for you today, so until the next time, take care and I'll see you again soon.
So maybe come up from your mom's basement, okay? And get a real life and stop scaring people, you nerd. Yeah, basic.